Hello friends, it's Mindy with the Pink Llama, and today we are making these ever so popular wood popsicles. These ones I hand cut and designed myself with a little help from my hubby, and they are so much fun to make. So we are just going in with Coffee Bean by Dixie Belle and staining up our wood. This is something I like to do on my projects when I'm going to be distressing. I just like the way the overall look turns out with it. So we're just taping off the top portion of this little popsicle that looks like it has a bite taken out of it. And we're going in with In the Navy by Dixie Belle and just painting that top portion. And then the center part of where that bite's taken out, I'm going to go in with Buttercream by Dixie Belle. Kind of makes it look like there's ice cream in the center. I just thought it was a fun little touch. And then we're going to be moving that tape. After we get it all dried up here, we're going to be moving that tape on top of our blue. And I'm just going to line up the best I can. It doesn't have to be perfect because, again, we are going to be distressing. And I thought I was going to go and do some vertical stripes on this. And then you'll see I changed my mind and we're going to do some horizontal. So I just get my tape lined up all the way around. The best you can. They don't have to be perfect. You can freehand this if you'd like. I just do it because I can't paint a straight line. And this is Buttercream by Dixie Belle. We're going in with here again. And I do paint all sides of the little popsicle. And I'm just going in with a fairly light coat. There's no point of going in with several coats when you're going to be distressing as much as I do these. And then a quick tip for you here is when you are using tape to get that straight line, if you paint away from the tape, the edge of the tape, you're not going to get as much bleeding and you're going to have a more crisp line if you do that way. So then I just take my piece of tape and I line it up with the bottom of that tape I already had on there. And when you do this, it almost always covers up your line perfectly. Now we have some Rustic Red by Dixie Belle. We're going in for our other stripes here. And just another light coat here. And then we'll dry it up really well, and then we are going to begin with our distressing. So when I am distressing with several different colors, I always start with my lightest color. And in this case, you know, the white next to the red, next to the blue. Typically you're going to get some transfer of that darker color onto the lighter color. But you can take a baby wipe and wipe that back. But I just try to be, you know, as careful as I can to get in between those colors and distress it out so that I don't have as much transfer. And you don't have to distress these at all, or you can lightly distress them. I went in with a very heavy distress. That's just my preference for this project. Now we're going to start in on our next little popsicle. And this one's just a whole popsicle. We're just getting our tape on. And it's not on there perfectly straight. And again, that's fine. So we're using that Rustic Red for the top of this one. And then we're going to be going in with In the Navy for the very bottom. Again, painting all sides. Now, when I take this tape off to line up my center stripe, I realized that I had left quite a big gap for my next color, which is going to be Buttercream. So I decided to split that big gap in half. So we will have two stripes of white with a stripe in the center. And that white color is Buttercream. You could literally do these popsicles any way you'd like. They don't need to be patriotic. You could paint them for a birthday. You could paint them for the summer. You could make them look like a watermelon, a different theme. Sky's the limit with these. There's so many things you can do. They're just so fun. So for this center stripe that I'm going to be doing, we are doing something just a little bit different. I'm going to go in the navy first. And I'm going to make sure I dry it up really well before I go in with my next coat. And I'm using Rustic Red over top of in the navy. So the reason I did this is because I really wanted that red and blue right there in the center. And when I distress, I'm going to distress this center portion, the center stripe, just a little bit lighter than I will the rest, because that blue is going to come through that red and it almost gives it a variegated look. And it's really neat looking. All the other colors, you're going to have that stain come through. So it is fairly noticeable on this center stripe with the blue. Just really cool looking. Now we're going to go in and we are going to wax these babies up. I always start with my edges because I do wax my edges a little heavier. I like them a little bit darker. And in between my stripes, I wax a little bit heavier as well. And then I do wax the entire thing, but I do wipe that wax back. And then I will go back in and darken up any spaces that I wanted a little darker. And then we are just waxing up our little popsicle stick. And then we're going to go in with some tobacco cloth and just tie it around the whole popsicle. And I have this little tag I got off of Etsy. I'm just distressing the edges and crinkling it up and waxing it up to make it look very rustic. And then I have a little rusty safety pin and a little rusty star we are going to attach to that tag and the tobacco cloth. And then we have some little hollowed out stars I'm going to rub and buff and wax up, and we are going to attach them with some tight bond to the top of our little popsicle that looks like it has a bite taken out, just to finish off that look. They're very simple, very easy, can be done any way you like. Thank you so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. And kits are available on the Pink Llama TX.com. Have a great day. Bye, guys.